The biggest driving force behind the switch from the so-called two-child policy to three-child policy is that China, like many developed countries, is in the midst of a demographic crisis. According to census data from 2020, the birth of child rate is at a historic low, with women giving birth to an average of 1.3 children in 2020. And the number of elderly Chinese, those who are above the age of 65, has risen dramatically from accounting for about 8.9% of the total population to about 13.5% in 2020. And this figure is expected to double in the coming decades. And this obviously poses great challenge for the Chinese economy, which has been built on labor-intensive manufacturing industries. There has been a lot of outcry against the three-child policy, particularly on social media. Some of the comments are incredibly creative and witty. Someone actually composed a song on Weibo, which is written as a parody to an 18th century song from the famous novel The Dream of the Red Chamber, or 红楼梦. In the very first chapter of The Dream of the Red Chamber, this well-respected elderly gentleman by the name of Zhen Shiying loses everything in one night. So his only daughter was snatched away by human traffickers, and his house caught fire, and he loses all his possessions. This experience brought Zhen Shiying to the bitter realization that life is short and filled with nothing but sorrow and hard labor. So in Chinese, this state of mind is known as 看破红尘, literally seeing through the red dust. And Zhen Shiying composes a song about his newly arrived spiritual enlightenment before he wanders off with a Taoist monk. So it's interesting to see that his words have resonated so powerfully with young Chinese today, who see themselves trapped in this endless rat race, which they called 内卷 or involution. And all they want to do is, to 躺平, which means to lie flat and do nothing. And this idea really goes back to the Taoist notion of 无为, of non-action. I'll just quickly read out a section from my translation to give you an idea of, call it cynicism, or this sense of disillusionment that young Chinese have today with reality. In such commotion does the world's theater rage. As each one leaves, another takes the stage. Why not just lie flat on the floor and be done for? Each of us with that poor girl may compare, who sews a wedding gown for another bride to wear. The Dream of the Red Chamber is such an influential work of art that it really has become part of the collective consciousness in China. I think this is the quality that makes the novel a timeless piece, that people will just evoke it, cite it, or even parody it as a response to contemporary events. I think the song is straightforward enough as it is for the public to understand it, but I think it is our job as scholars to explain the context and also to uncover its underlying significance. So why didn't people just compose a new song? Why did they have to evoke the Dream of the Red Chamber? And I think this really goes back to what the late sinologist Pierre Rickman said about this Chinese obsession with the past, which is not manifested through the building of large monuments as the ones we see in some European cities, but really through literary memory. And ancient Chinese thinkers have long reached the conclusion that everything in life is insubstantial except for the written word, for literature, or 文, and this literature will be kept alive if it is continuously being taught, being recited, being referred to, or being parodied. And this is such an essential aspect of the Chinese consciousness for those of us who are studying China as a subject.